The silent girl in the glass prison in the cold silence of deep space. A large human ship slowly moved toward a ruined planet. The planet was dead, dry, and cracked like broken skin. It had no life, no color, only dust and forgotten time. The mission was simple. Explore the strange signal that came from under the ground. No one expected what they found. Commander Ray stood at the front of the team, his eyes scanning the old alien structure. It was made of black stone that shimmered in the light, smooth like glass, sharp like memory. They walked down the broken stairs, dust rising with every step. Everything was quiet, too quiet. Even their breathing sounded loud. The air was heavy, not with weight, but with something else. Something like sadness, something like fear. They entered a large round hall. Symbols glowed on the walls in soft blue, alien words dancing like light. In the center of the room stood a tall glass pod. Inside it floated a girl. She did not move. Her skin was silver pale, her hair long and white like starlight. Her eyes were closed, her arms crossed over her chest, like a sleeping statue. The pod hummed with a soft sound, like a lullaby that never stopped. No one spoke for a moment. They only stared. The girl looked young, maybe 16 in human years. But there was something old about her, like time itself that wrapped around her and stayed. The glass was thick, yet the team could feel something on the other side. Not heat, not cold, something else, something. Watching Lieutenant Sarah stepped closer. Her voice was soft as she read the symbols carved on the floor near the pod. Do not awaken her. She remembers pain. She brings storms. The words made the team uneasy, but Ray took a step forward. His hand touched the glass. It was warm. That warmth moved through his fingers like a whisper. His heartbeat slowed, then sped up. The girl's eyes slowly opened. Silver and glowing, she did not blink. She only looked straight at Ray. Her lips did not move. But a voice echoed inside their minds. I remember you, but you are not him, she said. The voice was not loud, but it was deep, like it came from under the ground, from inside their bones. Everyone stepped back in fear, except Ray. He stood frozen. He asked who she was, but she only kept watching him, not angry, not sad, just watching. Like she was searching his face for a missing word. Her body did not move, yet her presence filled the room like smoke. They checked the pod. It had no controls, no wires, no sign of age, like it had been built yesterday, or forever ago. Sarah whispered that this might not be a prison. Maybe it was a cage, or maybe a coffin that never finished its job. The girl blinked once, slow and quiet, and something on her arm began to glow, a small blue mark, shaped like a star and a tear. It pulsed with soft light. Ray reached out again. Not afraid this time, just curious, just drawn. But before he could touch the glass again, the floor under them shook, the room trembled, and strange alien machines woke up from the walls, their lights turning red. Like eyes opening after centuries, they aimed at the team. But the machines did not fire. They just watched, waiting, like they were taking orders from the girl who still did not speak, did not move, yet controlled everything around her. She spoke again, only to Ray. You are not him, but your voice is close. It makes me feel again. I had forgotten what feeling was. Her voice was softer now, like wind inside a dream. Ray asked what happened to her, why she was here. But the only answer was silence. The room grew colder, or maybe time slowed. No one knew. The girl finally moved. Her hand touched the glass from inside, right where Ray's hand was, the moment they touched. Even with the glass between them, a wave of light spread across the room. The machines powered down. The room became quiet again. And the girl closed her eyes, but a tear slid down her cheek, glowing blue. It did not fall. It floated inside the pod like a star trapped in water. The team had seen many strange things in space, but this was something different, something personal, something alive. They carried her pod back to the ship, careful, slow, almost like carrying a sleeping child. She did not speak again. She did not open her eyes, but the mark on her arm kept glowing, soft and steady, like a heartbeat waiting for something or someone. Ray sat by the pod every day. trying to understand the connection, trying to remember why she said those words, "I remember you, but you are not him." The voice still echoed in his mind, and he could not shake the feeling that their meeting was not a chance. It was something old, something planned, something that had been waiting a very long time to begin. Who is she? The stars outside the ship moved slowly like frozen fire as Commander Ray sat near the glass pod that now rested inside the ship's medical bay. The room was quiet, filled only with the hum of machines and the soft rhythm of her breathing. Though her eyes were still closed, her presence was loud in the silence. It was not a voice, but a feeling like forgotten music playing in a room no one had entered for years. She had not spoken again since the whisper in the vault, but the memory of her words still circled in Ray's mind, not like a thought, but like a riddle. She said, "I remember you, but you are not him," and that line kept digging deeper like a seed planted in his chest waiting to grow. He tried to match her face to history, to records, to files. Nothing came up. She was unknown, yet somehow familiar like a dream. He could not name. Doctors examined her, but could not explain her body. Her skin was soft like velvet and strong like metal. Her blood was not red, but silver, and it shimmered when touched gently as if made of liquid light. Her heart beat slower than any human, but steady like a clock that never stopped. The machines could not scan her fully. They always froze as if they were afraid. She looked like a child, but she carried the weight of galaxies. Her hands were still, her lips unmoving, but the mark on her arm, the glowing star and tear symbol, continued to pulse. A soft, slow blue light, like a beacon, calling to something far away or deep inside. She was not asleep, but she was not awake either. She was caught in the space between. Sarah sat beside Ray one evening, her voice almost a whisper. "Do you think she was left or locked?" she asked. Ray did not answer for a while, his eyes fixed on the girl. "Maybe both," he said. Finally, maybe she asked to be forgotten. Maybe she begged to be left behind. They watched as her fingers moved slightly, like she was dreaming or remembering something. Her body had been still for days, and now it began to shift. Her chest rose slower than before, and her eyes blinked. Just once she was waking, not fast, not sudden, but like ice melting under slow sunlight. Ray leaned closer, careful. "Quiet," he spoke gently, not expecting an answer. "What is your name?" he asked again. She did not speak, but her eyes opened. Not wide, just enough to let light in. They were no longer silver. They were now glowing soft gold, filled with questions or maybe memory. She looked at Ray, and something behind her eyes shifted, not in fear, not in anger, but like recognition. A broken picture slowly coming together. Her lips moved silently. No sound came. But Ray felt something cold inside his head, a feeling. Not words, like a storm waiting, just outside a locked door. Then her voice came again, not loud but clear, like a song hidden under waves. "My name," she said, "is not mine anymore. It was taken when I was sealed. My real name is lost, but they called me Ira." Ray repeated it softly. "Ira." She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Yes," she whispered. Ira was what they feared. Ira was what they locked away. Sarah stood frozen behind Ray, her hand covering her mouth. This girl, this being, this mystery was speaking in perfect English, with a human name and a voice that felt like home and thunder at the same time. Ray asked, "Why did they fear you? What did you do?" She answered slowly, her words heavy. "I did nothing. They feared what I could be. They feared what I might become." She turned her eyes to the ceiling, as if searching for stars that were no longer there. "I was made," she said, "not born, made by minds who played with creation, by hands that thought they could control the future. They mixed light and dark. They used pieces of other worlds. They put me in the middle and called me hope. But I was not hope, not to them, not when they saw what I carried inside." Ray felt the air change, like gravity had shifted. She was not just a lost child, she was a creation. A secret from a forgotten war. He asked, "What happened to the others, the ones who made you? Where are they now?" She answered quietly, "Gone, lost to time, buried like dust. They vanished and left me alone with their fear, with their silence." Then she looked at him again, and her voice was softer, almost kind. "You are not him, but you carry the same light." His name was Kale. He was like you, kind and brave and foolish. He touched my hand once, and I remembered the sun. Then he died trying to protect me, and I forgot everything, even myself. A tear fell from her eye, this time not glowing, just a clear drop of memory. Ray reached toward the glass, not to open it, not to wake her fully, but just to let her know. Someone was still here, someone was listening. Someone was not afraid. Ira placed her hand against the glass again, and the light between them grew warm, not bright, just enough like the first fire after a long winter, and the silence between them no longer felt empty, it felt like a beginning. The forgotten war, the stars outside flickered like old memories trying to return. Ira sat in the quiet of the ship's observation chamber, her eyes watching the endless black sky, not blinking, not moving, just watching like she had done it before. Like she had seen the same stars fall and rise again for thousands of years. Commander Ray stood beside her, not speaking, just sharing the silence. Because silence had become the only language between them, soft and heavy, filled with questions without answers yet. Ira was changing every hour. She moved more, she blinked more. Her body no longer frozen like before. Something was unlocking inside her, something deep and ancient. The crew was uneasy. They watched her from a distance, unsure if she was a child or a weapon, unsure if she would save them or destroy them. No one could decide, and Ira could feel it. Their fear was quiet, but thick in the air like smoke after fire. Ray trusted her, or at least he wanted to trust her, because every time he looked into her eyes he saw pain, not rage, and when she spoke her voice carried sorrow, not threat. He asked her again what really happened. Where did she come from? Who locked her away? And why? Ira sat still for a long time before she answered. Her voice slow like dust falling in light. I was born in a lab, not a home. I was built not with love, but with fear. They were desperate. They wanted power, they wanted peace, but they used war to find it. Ray listened, his breath slow, his eyes fixed on her. Ira looked down at her hands, hands that looked so soft, but held the memory of storms. They called me a bridge. She said, a link between two galaxies, two species, two ideas. They wanted unity, but they were afraid of difference, so they created me, half of one world, half of another, no true place to belong. She paused, her fingers curling slightly, the mark on her arm pulsing brighter with every word they said. I would bring balance, but balance frightened them, because it meant change, and change is always dangerous to those who have power. The room felt colder as her memories returned. The glass walls reflected her face, but behind it, Ray saw something else, another world. Another time she spoke again, her voice lower. They put me in the middle of their war. They gave me commands. They gave me numbers. They told me who to save and who to erase. I followed because I didn't know better. I didn't know what I was yet. Her eyes met his, and something sharp passed between them. Not pain, not anger. Something deeper, a cut that never healed. Ray asked, who was Cale? The name you said before. Who was he to you? Ira's lips trembled a little, as if the name was a light and a knife at the same time. Cale was a soldier like you. He was sent to watch me, but he stayed to protect me. He taught me what kindness meant. He brought me food without fear. He spoke to me like I was not a tool, but a person. She looked up at the stars again. He told me stories about Earth. He said sunsets were warm like music, and oceans could sing. He held my hand once, and it didn't hurt. It felt like light entering a place that had been dark too long. Ray felt a tightness in his chest, something he could not explain, something that made his hands shake just a little. What happened to him? He asked, though part of him already knew. She did not cry this time, but her voice cracked. They found us, they said. I was dangerous. They said I had to be sealed away again. Cale refused. He stood between them and me. They killed him, and then they took my memories. They locked me in the glass and left me alone for what felt like forever. Body began to shake softly, not with fear, but with the weight of remembering. Ray placed his hand on the table near her, not touching her, not yet, just showing he was there. Her light began to pulse again, not blue this time, but gold, soft and strange. There is something else, she said, her tone changing like a shadow moving across the sun. Someone else knows I am awake, something ancient. Something that hated me, even before I was born. Ray leaned forward, who she looked at him, and whispered, they are not like you. They are not like anyone. They come from dark space, from the edge of known stars. They are old and patient and angry when they hear my signal. When they know I live again, they will come. The room grew heavy again, as if the future had stepped into the present. The ship's lights flickered just for a moment, just enough to remind them how small they were. Ray stood up slowly, his voice steady. Then we prepare, and this time you will not face them alone. Ira closed her eyes. Just for a second, her face softer than before. Maybe for the first time in centuries, she felt less alone. She was never alone. The night inside the ship felt longer than usual, and the stars outside seemed dim, as if space itself was holding its breath, waiting for what was coming. The crew spoke in whispers, now walking softer than before, their eyes often landing on Ira, not in anger, not in fear, but in a kind of quiet wonder that came with something unknown, yet deeply alive. Ira no longer stayed silent like before. She moved through the ship, slowly, like she was trying to remember what walking felt like. Her bare feet made no sound against the metal floor, but every step left behind something warm, invisible, yet real, like the air itself changed when she passed through it. Ray watched her every day, not like a soldier watching a threat, but like a traveler trying to understand the language of a place long forgotten. He asked her questions, sometimes, but she didn't always answer, and when she did, her words often came like poems or broken memories floating back to the surface. One day, she stood before the ship's mirror, staring at her own reflection for hours. Her hands touched her face like she was seeing herself for the first time. Her voice came soft like wind through glass. "This is not the face I remember," she said, not to Ray, not to anyone, just to the girl in the mirror. The girl who survived later. She sat in the med bay near a small child's drawing pinned to the wall, left there by someone long gone. A stick figure with stars for eyes and wings on its back. Ira touched it and smiled for the first time since waking up. A small, quiet smile filled with something no one could name. Ray approached her slowly, afraid to break the moment. He asked again, "Ray, what are you truly?" She looked at him, her eyes glowing dimly, not with power but with sadness, and said, "I was not made to be one thing. They tried to make me a weapon, then a bridge, then a prisoner. But before all that, I was something else, something they could not understand." She turned her hand over and showed him a second mark, one that had appeared only recently, glowing gold like a rising sun. It matched something from old human archives, a symbol not from her kind but from Earth itself. It was DNA, human DNA. The pattern was exact. Ray stepped back, confused, shocked, trying to connect the impossible lines. She met his gaze and said, "You are not just looking at someone from another world. Part of me comes from yours." Ship fell into silence again, not from fear but from realization. She was not alien, she was not other. She was both. She was made from human code and alien light. Her body was built from stars, but her soul carried the fire of Earth. Sarah ran tests to confirm it. The results were clear. Ira carried human genetic material, not copied, not stolen, but grown as if someone from Earth long ago had helped create her, someone who wanted to build something that could connect galaxies, not divide them. Ira remembered pieces, now flashes of old voices, faces without names, one voice clearer than the rest, warm and tired, saying she will need both hearts to survive. She will need both to feel. Ray asked who said that. She closed her eyes and answered, "Maybe my true creator, maybe my mother, maybe someone I will never meet again. But I know now I was never alone, not even in the glass, not even in the silence. Something human was always inside me." Lights flickered again, just like before, and the ship's alarm whispered a low warning, not danger yet, but something moving out there in the dark, something approaching slowly, like a storm you can feel before the wind even comes. Ira stood still, listening, not with ears, but with her skin, with her light. She turned to Ray and whispered, "They heard me. They are coming, the ones who buried me. They never stopped watching. They feared I would wake, and now I have, and they will want to finish what they started." Ray nodded, his jaw tight, his voice steady. "Then let them come. We are not afraid." She looked at him with something close to gratitude, not bright, just quiet, like the feeling of warmth in cold hands. After too long later that night, Ira walked to the ship's garden room, small and hidden, filled with green Plants from Earth. She placed her hand on the soil, her fingers glowing faintly, and for the first time in years the soil breathed back. One flower opened slowly as if remembering spring. Ray found her there and said softly, "You are not what they said, you are not a weapon." She looked at the flower, then at him. "I know now," she replied, "because if I was only made to destroy, this would not bloom, and this light inside me would not feel like home." He reached out slowly and placed his hand next to hers, not touching, yet close enough for her to feel the warmth. Between them, she didn't pull away, she only closed her eyes and said, "The stars are no longer quiet. I can hear them again, and they are calling me by my true name." Her warmth awakens the cold. The cold corridors of the ship no longer felt the same since Era began to walk through them with silent steps and quiet thoughts. Her presence had changed the air. The lights no longer flickered from fear, but from something else, something gentle and steady, like a slow breath returning after a long sleep. Crew still watched her, but now their eyes held less fear and more curiosity, and sometimes even respect. They saw how the plants in the garden bent slightly when she passed, how the machines stopped humming, like they listened, how the walls of the ship felt warmer near her, like metal itself remembered sunlight. Era did not speak often, but when she did, her voice carried the softness of things broken and mended. Again, she spent her days beside Ray, and sometimes beside the window, watching the stars like old friends coming back to visit. She had not smiled since the flower bloomed in her hand, and now she did again, not wide, not bright, but full of something living. Ray noticed her light was changing, no longer only blue or gold, but shifting between them, like waves touching each other. He asked her what it meant, and she answered slowly, "It means I am becoming whole again, not just what they made me, not just what I feared, but what I choose." He did not speak, just nodded and stayed near her, his presence quiet and steady like the ground beneath her bare feet. One morning, alarms whispered again, not loud, but steady. The sensors caught something moving in deep space, something big and slow, like a shadow floating across the stars. The crew gathered around the screen and saw it, a structure or a ship or something else. They could not name. It did not send messages. It did not show weapons. It just moved closer with silence heavier than sound. Era stood behind them, her face calm, her eyes unreadable. She said, "I know it. They built it to watch me. It is not alive, but it remembers like I do. It has no heart, but it fears, and when it fears, it destroys." Sarah asked if it would attack, and Ira said, "Not unless it feels me. But if I go near, it will wake and it will try to erase me like before." Ray looked at her and asked, "Can we stop it?" She looked down and said, "Maybe, but not with machines, not with fire. Only with something it forgot long ago." Warmth. Ray did not understand at first, but she explained slowly, "It was made by minds that forgot feeling. It fears what it cannot control. It fears light that comes from inside, the kind that heals, not hurts. I carry that light now, and it remembers." She walked to the center of the ship where the energy core pulsed in silence and placed her hand on the console. Her light flowed through the wires, through the walls. The ship groaned softly, not in pain, but in response, like it too remembered something soft and good. The structure outside stopped moving for a moment. Its lights flickered, its shape shifted, and then it began to pulse back, not red, not hostile, but confused, like it did not understand what it was feeling. Ray watched in awe as Ira stood calm, her body glowing with both colors, her arms open, her voice barely a whisper. "I am not your enemy. I am what you forgot. I am warmth. I am feeling. I am memory. I am not afraid." And something strange happened. The structure began to fold inward, like it was breathing for the first time in centuries. Light spilled from its center, not dark, not violent, but soft, pale light that felt like morning. It did not attack. It did not speak. It only floated there, silent and still. Then a beam of light reached out and touched the ship, not harsh, just a soft thread that wrapped around the hull, like a hand, like a question. Ira stepped forward and touched it, her fingers glowing brighter than ever before. And in that moment, every screen on the ship filled with images, not of war, not of weapons, but of people, old people of many worlds, standing in silence, their hands raised not in anger, but in farewell. It was not just a ship, it was a memory, a grave, a last witness of a time long gone. And now it was saying goodbye. The beam faded, the structure drifted, and began to dissolve into dust not destroyed. Just released like a story finally ending, Ira watched it go, her eyes filled not with tears. With peace she turned to Ray and said it remembered, and now it rests. Ray stepped closer, his hand near hers, not touching, just sharing the space between them. You did that, he said. You reminded it what it was. She smiled again and answered softly, and I reminded myself too. Ship felt different now, not because of systems or shields, but because of something else, something human and not human, something old and new, something called warmth. Later that night, Ira stood alone in the garden, her hands touching the leaves, her breath soft, her light dim. She whispered to the air, "Thank you, Kale. I found someone else who carries the light, and this time I will not forget the price of being touched." The ship floated through space like a quiet thought, carrying the weight of everything it had seen and everything it had yet to face inside its walls. Silence had changed. It was no longer empty, but full of questions, full of moments that no one could explain, not even Ray, who now spent every hour near Ira, watching her light shift like fading fire. Her strength was different, now not brighter, not louder, but softer, like something holding itself back. The glow under her skin no longer pulsed with confidence, but with quiet warning, as if her body knew something her voice had not yet said. She moved slower, she blinked more, her breath sometimes paused too long, like time inside her was thinning. Ray noticed it first, how she no longer touched the walls, how she kept her fingers curled into her palms like she was afraid to let her light reach out again. Sarah ran tests quietly, her face tightening with every result, her voice heavy. When she spoke to Ray, her energy is draining, not from outside, but from within. Every time she connects with something, every time she heals, every time she remembers, it takes more from her than it gives back. He did not want to believe it, but he saw it now in her eyes, a kind of sadness that looked like peace and pain mixed together, like someone who had accepted something they never asked for. Ira sat with her back against the glass in the garden room, her hands buried in soil, her light barely flickering. Ray walked in slow footsteps, echoing soft like rain. He sat beside her, not close, just near enough, and asked, "Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell me?" She looked at the small flower they had grown together and whispered, "Because you would try to stop me, and this cannot be stopped." Her voice held no fear, only understanding. She continued, "I was not made to last. I was made to carry something, and once it was given, I was meant to fade, not destroyed. Just forgotten, like a bridge that disappears once you've crossed." Ray shook his head, his voice sharp then soft. "There must be a way, something. We can do something, we can give." She looked at him, her eyes tired and warm, and said, "You already gave me more than I was ever meant to have. You gave me a name, not a number. You gave me a moment, not a mission. You gave me warmth, and for someone like me, that is more than life." Sarah joined them later, holding a device glowing with uncertain hope, her hands shaking just enough for Ira to notice. "We found something," she said, "not a cure, but a possibility. We can transfer energy from one body to another. We can slow the fade, maybe even hold it off. But it is dangerous, painful, untested." Ray stood before she could finish. "Do it." Ira's eyes widened, not in fear, but in disbelief. She whispered, "No, you will not survive that." And he said, "Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but I won't watch you vanish while I still breathe." Procedure began in the quiet hours when most of the ship slept. The room was cold, the lights dim. Ray lay on the table, wires running from his chest to Ira's hand, her glow almost gone. His heartbeat strong, hers flickering, as the machine powered up their bodies, reacted light moving between them like threads of gold and silver twisting into each other. Ira gasped, her back arching as warmth entered her like fire finding forgotten wood. Her skin lit up brighter than ever before, and for a moment it seemed like she was whole again. But Ray's breath began to slow, his skin pale, his fingers shaking. Ira felt it. She felt every drop of him flowing into her, and it burned not in her body but in her heart. She screamed, not with sound, but with light that filled the room like a rising sun. She pulled her hand away, breaking the connection, the machine shutting down. Her glow stable, now strong but not bright. She fell to the floor, Aside Ray, who now lay still, not gone, but barely there, his pulse weak, his voice almost nothing. You should not have done that, she whispered, tears, not of light, but real ones sliding down her cheeks, and he smiled a broken smile, and said, then I did something right. She leaned forward, her forehead touching his, and in that moment something ancient and wild and beautiful passed between them. Not energy, not light, not memory, but something older. Something nameless, something that belonged only to those who touched without fear. Ray closed his eyes, not in surrender, but in peace, and Ira sat beside him, holding his hand, not to give or take, but to feel one last time before the dark between stars called again. The last embrace. The stars outside were quiet, as if space itself had paused to listen, as if every galaxy, every comet, every silent moon had turned to watch the ship, where two souls now floated between life and light, between ending and becoming. Ira sat beside Ray, her fingers wrapped around his hand, her light no longer flickering wildly, but burning soft and steady like the last flame in a cold room. His eyes were closed, his breath slow like time stretching thin. Her face held no fear, no anger, only something that looked like peace mixed with sorrow, the kind of sorrow that lives in memory, not in regret. The crew gathered outside the med bay, their voices hushed, their hearts heavy. None of them could explain what had happened, no words could hold what they had seen, no science could measure what passed between Ira and Ray. It was something older than reason, something rooted in connection, in sacrifice, in a choice made without calculation. Sarah stood at the door, her hand against the glass, watching the way Ira held him, not like a soldier, not like a savior, but like someone who had found something they never thought they would feel again, and now had to let it go. Inside, the lights dimmed gently, as if the ship itself was mourning, or maybe honoring what had just taken place. Ira turned to Ray, her voice soft like wind moving through old leaves. You gave me something no machine, no star, no code ever could. She said, you gave me the part of myself they tried to erase. You reminded me that I was never only a weapon, I was never only made, I was also found. Ray opened his eyes slowly, pain lining every breath, but peace shining behind it, and he whispered, then it was worth everything. Yara's hands trembled now, not from weakness, but from the weight of what came next, because she knew it was not over, because far beyond their ship, something had awakened, something had seen her light, and now it wanted to claim it, or crush it, or use it again. The stars shifted, the ship's alarms whispered again, low and steady. The enemy was coming, not just the Watchers, not just the old creators, but something bigger, a force that had moved in silence for centuries, and now reached toward her with cold hunger. Crew turned to Ira, asking, what should we do? How can we stop this? And she stood slowly, her eyes glowing, not blue, not gold, but something new, something deeper, like starlight mixed with fire and rain. She said, we do not run, we do not fight with fear, we rise. She walked to the Cone-2 ship's core chamber, where the engine that powered their journey pulsed like a sleeping heart. Her fingers touched the console, and her light flowed through the walls, through the wires, through every corner of the ship. She whispered to the ship, to the stars, to the ones who came before, I am not your mistake, I am not your tool, I am not your failure, I am the voice you tried to silence, and I will sing. The ship responded, not with sound, but with warmth, every system awakening, every light shining brighter, not because of power, but because of her, because she had become something they had never planned, something they could never unmake. Ray watched from the screen, his body weak, but his eyes steady. She is more than them, he said. She is everything they feared and everything they needed. The enemy approached now, their ships black and endless, stretching across the stars, like a shadow waiting to fall. Ira stood between them and the crew, her arms open, her body glowing, her voice like thunder, hidden in calm rain. I do not hate you, she said. I do not fight you. I only show you what you forgot. She raised her hands, and the light inside her burst outward, not violent, not loud, but wide, like a new sun rising across dark water. The enemy ships began to shake, their weapons powered down, their walls cracked, and from inside them voices rose, not screams, not orders, but memory sounds of children, Laughter, fire, oceans, love, things lost to time, things buried beneath orders and silence and war. Ira fell to her knees, her light beginning to dim again, her body not breaking, but releasing like a flame returning to the wind. The ships in the distance stopped, then turned, then faded like mist touched by morning. The silence returned, not empty, but full of something sacred. The crew ran to her side. Ray tried to stand, but Sarah held him back, and together they watched her lay down, her eyes closing, her face soft, her lips holding one final smile. She whispered only one word, thank you, and her body faded into light, into dust, into warmth that filled every corner of the ship, not as a ghost, not as a program, but as presence. Did not bury her, they could not. Instead they built a chamber filled with flowers and light where her name was written. Not as a number, not as a weapon, but as Ira, the one who remembered, the one who touched the stars and was touched in return. Ray healed slowly, never fully, but enough. And every night he sat beneath the stars, whispering her name, not with pain, but with hope, because she was never gone. Not truly, not while her warmth lived inside the walls, inside the crew, inside him. And somewhere beyond the edge of known space, a single star pulsed brighter than the rest, as if she was still watching, still listening, still becoming.